may recognize it from the music,
We shall overcome.
its message, the mission, or its makeup. The Black Church, born in slavery, weaned in segregation, and raised in struggle. Los Angeles County is home to more than 243 historically Black Protestant churches, some dating back to the late 19th century.
This is an historic church organized in 1885.
William Epps pastors Second Baptist Church in Los Angeles. It's a primarily Black congregation in a now largely Latino community.
We've been in this community for 85 years. When this church was built in this community in 1926, this was the hub of the African American community. Central Avenue, right down the street from us, was where nightlife took place, and so all of that has changed, and this has become a transitional Hispanic community, and yet you do ministry here, so that's a challenge.
He says their church is landlocked in Los Angeles, meaning they can't just pick up and move because they've invested so much in their property. The church building is a National Historic Monument. Dr. Martin Luther King made it his West Coast pulpit during the Civil Rights Movement.
435 years in slavery, but guess what?
Many years later, people still fill up the church pews for an inspirational sermon and songs, while outside the church walls, a debate takes place over whether the Black church as a whole is dead.
That's a phrase that we have to look at very closely because there's no such thing as a Black church. It's the church of Jesus Christ. We somehow said a Black church because we identified the Black church because of segregation. You know, it used to be in the balcony, and now we're all over the church.
We end up with this thing called the Black church because we have this historical tradition in America of African people coming here and becoming Christians through a long process of enslavement and reformulating that Christianity into really a freedom-focused African-American folk religion. The Black church, so to speak, developed around that idea that, okay, this group of African-Americans has a certain need here in America, and the church has to perform a number of roles, not just the salvific, the afterlife.
And it's the role of the Black church that's in question by some religion scholars.
Dr. Eddie Glaude announced that the Black church is dead.
At a pastor's brunch in Pasadena, California, preachers and professors of the greater Los Angeles area met up to weigh in on the state of the Black church. The conversation was sparked by an article in the Huffington Post last year by Princeton professor Eddie Glaude Jr. proclaiming the Black church's death.
So the question Glaude is raising is African Americans still experience all forms of discrimination and disparity. How are we going to speak? How are we going to act? What is going to be our proactive response?
The question is, why are you asking and who are you asking for? One problem I find as the Black church and as was so eloquently put, that we've got to decide who we are. The problem is we are very busy allowing other people tell us who we are. We have to ask ourselves the question, who is actually setting the agenda for the Black church?
A Gallup poll in 2010 said Blacks were more likely to attend church than any other race. Nearly 20% of African Americans who attend church in Los Angeles are members of just 5 churches: Crenshaw Christian Center, Faithful Central Bible Church, Los Angeles Church of God in Christ, First African Methodist Episcopal, and the City of Refuge. Each brings in close to 5,000 to 10,000 congregants a week.
There's also another overlay that is that in the Black community, the church has historically been a center of the community, and that it does certain sorts of things that the church in white communities just doesn't do. And some of that is about cultural differences between the African American community and the way that community has developed over time, and the way that whites as a dominant race and power in the U.S. has developed over time. So it's just slightly different.
My name is Frederick K. Price, Jr., the pastor of Crenshaw Christian Center. We meet the needs of the community to the best of our ability with the resources that we have available to us.
Pastor Price's megachurch, or church having 2,000 or more average attendees, resides on the old campus of Pepperdine University in South Central Los Angeles. It's home to the iconic Faith Dome, where they hold televised worship services.
Mentors, let's go!
The church hosts Project Accountability, a mentoring program to help keep youth out of trouble. So while the kids meet up with mentors, their moms and dads go to a parenting class.
That you're still seeking your goals.
Just 4 miles away from the Faith Dome, Reverend Paul Hill of Grace United Methodist Church helps those in his community who need it most.
We also provide financial support for persons whose living wage is not adequate to meet all their needs. So we'll help with utility, rent, medication payments. And then we also have a pantry that we provide food.
With 14 million Americans out of work, 16.7% are African American, the highest of any ethnic group. In Los Angeles County, there are more than 1.2 million people unemployed. African Americans also account for almost half of the U.S. population living with HIV and AIDS.
The numbers of seniors who are becoming infected is greatly increasing. We thought it very important to be intentional about developing a training time that specifically was earmarked for empowering, informing people 50 plus years of age and older.
They're garden apartments, as you can see. On the corner we have Kilgore Manor. It's another 52 units.
William Epps is working to solve the housing crisis in his neighborhood.
It's named for the 7th pastor of the church, Dr. Thomas Kilgore. And these are 52 units of low-income, senior, and handicapped housing.
His church commissioned a report last year from USC's Center for the Study of Immigrant Integration. He learned that many in the area are living well below the poverty line in overcrowded homes, averaging close to 6 people per house.
We do this in order to provide affordable housing for people. Otherwise, people may not have the kind of affordable housing that they need so that they can have a decent place to live.
At Fuller Theological Seminary, Dr. Ralph Watkins studies the growth of the black church.
I think you have areas where the church is thriving and doing well. We have areas where the church is suffering, and I think Eddie Glau's pronouncement of death is accurate in some ways. I think Eddie Glau's key issue is that the African American church has lost its prophetic edge. Reverend Cecil Murray, he was the prophet of our day.
We housed 300 homeless during the 4 winter months all night long.
He was the one leading a movement in this city. The voice of a Chip Murray no longer exists in the city of Los Angeles. Our churches have become points where politicians pass through to wave, to be prayed for, and to receive votes. What we don't see from our pulpit are these radical voices asking and crying for change. I mean, when have you seen in the city of LA a pastor leading a march about anything? We're closing schools, we're laying off teachers, we're cutting back social services, we're closing libraries, we're closing parks, we're closing rec centers, we're increasing our prison population. What pastor have you heard on the news saying, hey, this is an issue?
What I say is that just leading causes is not the real answer today, because today everybody's got a cause. And after civil rights, the whole thing got muddied. We went from civil rights to women's rights to gay rights, and everybody's got rights. Now we're arguing about unions, and to go out and just march up and down the street is really, it's a lesson in futility.
Bishop Noel Jones pastors City of Refuge in Gardena, California, one of the largest congregations in the area. With its United Jobs Creation Council, the church gave 4,000 ex-offenders jobs. He says the role of a church is to uplift and partner with political agencies, not become one.
It can only partner, because our message has to be spiritual. We can't go to Detroit and take on the school system that has fallen apart because of a lack of finances. We can't do that. What we need to do is deal primarily with young people, families, because what's central to an upstanding community is family.
I'm Reverend Cecil L. Chip Murray. I'm in my 5th year of service at USC. They brought me on board when I retired within the African Methodist Episcopal Church system. Sometimes the black church has said, we don't want to get too political here. Well, you can't live in a political environment without being involved. There is separation of church and state, but the separation does not mean a divorce.
politics and the pulpit have often gone hand in hand. Dr. Darnise Martin of Loyola Marymount University says finding that connection between the black church and the government is a little harder to find these days.
While you might not see a minister walking down the street protesting against something anymore, what you do read about or see on the news is ministers who are invited to the White House. There are political alliances being made. I tend to think that there's still a strong political and religious bond. It just doesn't look the same way it did during the Civil Rights Movement.
Here at Mount Moriah Baptist Church, members put on their Black History play. Singing old spirituals, reenacting the hardships that slaves once faced, is how the church connects both young and old with African American history. It's that connection to the church as a central social and cultural hub in the black community that Pastor Wade says communities all over the U.S. lack because of a generational shift.
We got so much they did not have back in the day when I was young. See, on Sundays, stores were closed all over town. You couldn't go to the mall. There was nothing. See, the church didn't have a lot to compete with years ago, but we have so much, Sunday brunch now is becoming the real issue. Watching the football game, getting on the tailgate parties.
23, going once, going twice, sold!
Pastor Najuma Smith-Pollard of St. James AME held a quilt sale after church service. Each quilt had artwork that told a story of early African American history.
And the shoe fly symbol let them know that there was either a conductor in the area or a place, a safe haven for the slaves to reside. And we're starting to bid, because it's our last one, we're starting to bid at $20. You go, girl. All right, we got 20.
Smith-Pollard is one of the handful of female pastors in Los Angeles.
I see my role like any other preacher's role, which is to minister to the community spiritually as well as practically. An individual which gives hope to others who want to engage ministry or who want to seek leadership roles, knowing that it can be done successfully, and it can be done successfully as a woman.
Women make up the majority of most black congregations. Researchers say the black church has come a long way with allowing more women behind the pulpit, but still lags a bit when it comes to women reflected in leadership overall.
And there is a pushing from the fact that there's so many women who've always been the backbone of the black church. We are just not going to be the ones who are the office secretary anymore and the one, picking up pastors' clothes from the dry cleaner. We're probably very close to seeing a woman in the White House. Then we cannot continue to have this religious narrative that says that women have to be silent.
If you're not moving forward, you are indeed going backwards. Amen.
You just look at the sheer numbers. I would still argue the black church is one of, if not the most sexist institution in the country. I think we still give privilege to men. We still discriminate women based on the sake of gender. A woman can out-preach you, out-lead you, out-think you. She will not get the appointment that an African-American male will get.
In Irvine, California, Reverend Mark Whitlock hosted an annual church leadership conference. He addressed how one woman told him she wasn't too pleased with this year's majority male speaker lineup as it was printed on the flyer.
You got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You got all of them at the top of the list. And then look at Mary and Martha. She said, Reverend, isn't it about time we change the paradigm a little bit? Come on, God praise. And obviously, I got a little twisted. I said, I'm inviting all these people right there. Then I looked at it and I said, and had to really deal with that. And as if we have really changed. And so next year, there's going to be a woman on the top there.
As we look at desegregation, and I think what Claude is suggesting is that the black church must expand or certainly modify its message. The black church must become to realize that major churches like Joel Osteen and others are very multiracial, ethnic plurality. So the black church must move in that direction. We've preached a liberation theology message for a long time. Nothing wrong with that. I'm with that, but at the same time, everybody needs liberation. So it's not a race issue as much as it is a human issue.
A
lot of times when churches try to become diversified, they're really not trying to be diversified. They're just really trying to have people that don't look like them to do the same things that they do. And so you have a leadership that's pretty much all the same, all male, or whatever color or whatever. Then you have positions of non-power. And then you have the people, and they all have to come and be like you. If you want to diversify and you're going to reach Caucasians and Latinas and Koreans and Chinese, you got to have some Chinese ministry up in there. And that doesn't always look black.
As the Black church moves into taking down racial and gender barriers, the technological barrier is getting knocked down too.
You can get this Mac logo, just that Apple logo right there. I'm all about technology, to the utilization of technology. I no longer use a Bible, I use my iPad. You know, so something small like that. And it's amazing how many people now in the congregation are using some form of technology, whether it be a laptop, whether it be their cell phone, whatever it is, to follow along as I'm teaching.
We're a bunch of technocrats. We use a database where we email people on a regular basis. We have our own Facebook page. We also stream our worship service, and we do podcasting. We try our best to hit every type of opportunity to communicate with people.
The state of the Black church in LA shows that many churches are right on track with being relevant and addressing community needs. It also shows that many still have their work cut out for them.
Let's just say South Los Angeles churches got together. What if we pulled some resources together, you know, eliminated poverty between Florence and Manchester on Vermont? I believe we could definitely do those things.
When the Black church wrestles with this very question, are we dead or alive, it at least allows us to have a conversation. I think the Black church must look in the mirror and say, who are we? Have we taken care of the legacy we inherited?
I think the church is the best entity that God ever created. Black, white, blue, green, yellow, polka dot, peppermint stripe. There will always be interest in people standing up with language, commanding attention, and painting pictures that are etched in people's imagination that leave or distill essence in their spirit that causes them to say, yeah.
So is the Black church in LA dead?
It might be on life support, but it's not dead. It will never die. Because I believe what the Bible says, upon this rock I build my church. The gates of hell shall not prevail against it. This economy and all that kind of thing going on. The church has been in worse shape than this. The communities have been in worse shape than this, but God brought us back.
Where do we go from here? And wherever we're going, it's beyond you. It's beyond the people in your pews, in your choir. It's beyond your denomination. It's beyond your payroll or your budget. It is reaching out. For if we fail to reach out, then we fail, period.
Look to see you this week.
Okay.
Okay.
Travel around on a Sunday morning to any Black church and see if the doors are closed and if the sign has been hung up that says, gone out of business because we died. I think that it can speak for itself.